Chris Hemsworth looks like a god, and for the past 15 years, he has played one on screen. But the man behind Thor's hammer did not walk into Hollywood with a golden ticket. He arrived with a backpack, a fading Australian accent, and a string of failed auditions that left him sleeping on friends' couches and questioning every choice he had ever made. His journey from a working class neighborhood in Melbourne to the highest paid actor in the world is not a story of lucky breaks. It is a story of rejection so relentless that it would have broken most people, of a body pushed to its absolute limits, and of a quiet humility that never quite fit the image of a Norse god. Chris Hemsworth did not become Thor because he was born perfect. He became Thor because he refused to stop showing up. Christopher Hemsworth was born on August 11th, 1983, in Melbourne, Australia. His father, Craig, was a social services counselor. His mother, Leonie, was an English teacher. He grew up in the suburban sprawl of Bullen, a middle-class neighborhood where the biggest excitement was a backyard cricket match. He was not a standout student. He was not a natural athlete. He was just a tall, goofy kid with too much energy and a talent for making his younger brothers, Luke and Liam, laugh. When he was 15, he saw the film Gladiator for the first time. Russell Crowe walked across the screen and something clicked in young Chris's brain. He did not want to be an actor for the fame or the money. He wanted to be an actor because he wanted to feel what Russell Crowe looked like. He was feeling alive, powerful, completely present. He told his mother he was going to be a movie star. She smiled and nodded the way mothers do, and then she quietly signed him up for drama classes. The first few years were brutal. Chris landed a few small roles on Australian television shows like Guinevere Jones and Neighbours, the same soap opera that had launched Kylie Minogue and Russell Crowe. But the roles were tiny. The pay was worse, and the Australian industry was too small to contain his ambitions. In 2007, he made a decision that terrified him. He packed a single suitcase, said goodbye to his family, and moved to Los Angeles. He was 24 years old. He had no agent, no connections, no money, and no guarantee that he would ever work again. He moved into a tiny apartment with his brother Liam, and together they auditioned for everything. Commercials, guest spots, student films, Chris said yes to every single thing that came his way. And very little came his way. The turning point came in 2009, but it came wrapped in failure. Chris auditioned for the role of James T. Kirk in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek reboot. He prepared for weeks. He studied William Shatner's mannerisms. He walked into the room and gave the best audition of his life. He did not get the part. The role went to Chris Pine, but someone in that room remembered his face. A casting director named Sarah Finn was working on another project, a little film called Thor. She called Chris in for a meeting. He read the lines. He left, and then he heard nothing for 6 months. When the call finally came, it was not what he expected. The director, Kenneth Branagh, told Chris that he was too big for the part. Not too big as in famous, but too big as in physically large. Branagh said that Chris had the acting ability, but not the physique. You look like a tall surfer, Branagh told him. Thor needs to look like a god. Chris hung up the phone and stared at the wall. He was being rejected because he was not muscular enough. That was a problem he could solve. He went to the gym the next morning and did not leave for the next 6 months. He ate chicken and broccoli 6 times a day. He lifted weights until his hands bled. He put on 20 pounds of muscle. When he walked back into the audition room, Branagh did not recognize him. "Who are you?" the director asked. Chris smiled and said, "I'm Thor." The first Thor film came out in 2011. It was a modest success, but no one knew yet what they had. Chris Hemsworth was still a relative unknown. Then came the Avengers in 2012, and everything changed. He walked onto that screen with his long blonde hair, his cape, and his hammer, and something happened that no one had predicted. He was funny. The other Avengers were brooding and serious, Robert Downey Jr. quipped. but even his jokes came from a place of pain. Chris Hemsworth's Thor was genuinely joyful. He laughed during battle. He smiled at danger. He brought a lightness to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that no one knew it needed. Audiences fell in love with him not because he was strong, but because he seemed to be having so much fun. But fame came with a price that Chris was not prepared to pay. The physical demands of playing Thor were destroying his body. Between 2011 and 2017, he made 7 Marvel films. Each one required months of brutal training, 2 workouts a day, 6 days a week, eating until he felt sick, dehydrating himself for shirtless scenes. He tore muscles. He damaged his shoulders. He developed sleep apnea because his neck had grown too thick. He looked like a god, but he felt like a wreck. His wife, the actress Elsa Pataky, watched him come home exhausted, unable to play with. Their children, unable to laugh without pain. One night, he looked in the mirror and did not recognize himself. The muscles were there, but the joy was gone. He realized that he had become a prisoner of his own body. That realization led to the most important creative decision of his career. In 2017, he told Marvel that he wanted to change the character. He was tired of playing the stiff, Shakespearean version of Thor. He wanted to try something new, something funny, something vulnerable, something human. The Marvel executives were nervous. The character was their property, and Chris was just the actor. But the director Taika Waititi believed in him. Together, they made Thor Ragnarok, a film that threw out everything audiences thought they knew. About the character, Thor lost his hammer. He lost his eye. He lost his father. He lost his home planet. And in the middle of all that loss, Chris Hemsworth found the character again. He improvised lines. He made silly faces. He wore a helmet with wings and ran around like a child. The film was a massive hit, and critics who had dismissed Chris as just another handsome face suddenly called him the funniest actor in the Marvel Universe beyond Marvel. Chris Hemsworth built a career that proved he was more than just a superhero. He played a ruthless hacker in Black Hat, a film that bombed at the box office but showed his range. He played a washed-up former action star in Vacation, stealing scenes with his willingness to look ridiculous. He played a hostage negotiator in Extraction, a brutal action film that became one of Netflix's most watched original movies. For Extraction, he pushed his body further than ever before, performing nearly all of his own stunts, running through, burning buildings, leaping off moving vehicles. He broke ribs. He tore ligaments. He kept going. The film was shot in Bangladesh, India, and Australia, and Chris spent months away from his family. His wife asked him why he was doing it. He told her, "Because I want to prove that I can do more than hold a hammer." In 2020, Chris Hemsworth signed a deal with National Geographic to host a documentary series called Limitless. The show was his most personal project yet. It followed him as he underwent a series of extreme physical and mental challenges designed to understand the limits of the human body. He fasted for 4 days. He swam in freezing water. He climbed a 100-foot rope without a harness. He underwent dozens of medical tests, and the results were terrifying. The doctors told him that he carries 2 copies of the APOE4 gene, a genetic marker that makes him 8 to 10 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease than the general population. He learned this news on camera. The moment was raw and real. Chris did not cry, but his eyes filled with tears. He thought about his grandfather, who had suffered from Alzheimer's. He thought about his children, who might have to watch him forget their names. For the first time in his career, Chris Hemsworth looked genuinely afraid, but he did not run from the news. He went public with it. He announced that he was taking a break from acting to spend more time with his family and to focus on his health. He said that he planned to continue working, but more selectively. He said that the diagnosis was not a death sentence, but a wake-up call. "I'm going to enjoy every moment I have," he told his fans, "and I'm going to fight like hell to keep my mind sharp." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people wrote to him thanking him for his honesty. Alzheimer's researchers contacted him about becoming an advocate. Chris Hemsworth, the god of thunder, had revealed himself to be just a man who was scared, who was vulnerable, who was doing his best. Today, Chris Hemsworth lives in Byron Bay, Australia, on a sprawling property that he shares with his wife and their 3 children. He surfs in the morning. He builds Lego with his kids in the afternoon. He has turned down several major film roles to be present for the small moments. He still trains, but now he trains for health, not for Hollywood. He still acts, but now he chooses projects that bring him joy. He is not retired. He will be back as Thor in future films, and he has several projects in development. But the urgency is gone. The hunger to prove himself has softened into something quieter and deeper. He is no longer the boy from Melbourne who needed to be a movie star. He is a father, a husband, a man who has looked at his own mortality and decided not to blink dot. Chris Hemsworth's success story is not about the hammer. It is about the hands that hold it. He could have been destroyed by the pressure of playing a god.